Hello and welcome to the video. This is about one of the latest models from the team at DarwinFPV. Now I've looked at quite a few things from DarwinFPV over the last year or two, and they initially started making very good value for money quads, typically based around analog systems, and this is one of their latest. This is the Cineape35. Now there's a lot of this class of quad kicking around from people like SpeedyBee, GepRC, Emax and others. So it's interesting to see DarwinFPV come out with their version, because those 35 class Cinewhoop style frames and ready to fly quads are very popular. Now, I did like its little brother, as lots of others did too. That was the Cineape35. I'll put links down to all this stuff below if you want to go and have a look. So I'm intrigued to see what this big brother is like. The only thing I did notice when I was looking at the website is they're absolutely falling for the DJI hype, and they're offering it with kind of a version 1 or an 03 style air unit. And it should be offered ready for other HD systems to be installed, because there's easily enough room in here to put your HD0 or your WalkSnail kit. And the way it is at the moment, you have to buy an analog version and then take the analog system out, which seems absolutely crazy. DarwinFPV, if you're watching this, don't be dragged into the DJI hype. There's a lot of us out here that don't fly DJI for stuff like this. You need to offer a model that doesn't include components that you have to throw away in order to use that stuff. So while I show you how it comes in the box, let's go through the specs. This is your classic kind of true X frame, which these things tend to be. 151.5mm wheelbase, arms are 3.5mm thick. It includes an all-in-one flight controller at the middle. This is a Darwin F411. 3 to 6S 45 amp ELRS all-in-one. There's an awful lot of stuff in there. F111 is not a fantastic CPU to be using in something like this. I now, for example, have kind of dropped support for it. It gives you a limited number of UARTs, as we'll see in a moment, with a Betaflight setup. This is older tech. The receiver on board is either inbuilt Express LRS receiver, which I'm using here, or it is available with a Team Black Sheep Nano receiver as well. Does nicely, as you've already probably spotted, come with a DarwinFPV branded GM8 GPS unit, and that means that we do get the additional safety of things like the Betaflight GPS rescue mode. Motors on this are 2006 3400 kV for the 4S and 2006 2030 kV for the 6X version. I'm flying the 4S version here. One piece injection molded prop guard, and there are a number of foam bits and other pieces that you can install around the prop guards to make it safer if you're flying indoors. Documentation, they talk about the fact that they have protected electronics from contact with metal using glue. Not sure what that's all about, but I guess that means if you land on something that's ferrous or conductive, then you don't have a really bad day. And it's definitely priced to compete with those other Cinewhoop 35 style models from the vendors that I talked about at the beginning. So let's plug it in using the port at the top that is quite nicely covered by a little cover by default. Let's plug it in and have a look at the default configuration. So we'll put on expert mode, no data flash chip, so I can't see if it's ever been locked. It says that it has no 3D fix, however, pop to the GPS. At the moment, we can see that there's nothing coming in, but in terms of the setup, ports are set like this. So GPS is on UART1 and TBS Smart Audio, with this being an analog version, is set for the soft serial port. So again, because this is a F411 based model, it only has 2 UARTs, which has always been the big problem with F411. Configuration looks like this: 8K gyro, 4K PID loop frequency. CPU load sat here is 54%, so you wouldn't want to overload it any more than this. Things like soft serial are turned on, OSD's on, air mode's on, GPS is enabled and set for U-blocks. Interestingly, none of these other bits are set. Power and battery is set like this. Failsafe is set to GPS rescue, which is fab. Let's hope that the hover throttle is right. PID tuning looks like this. Again, I'll put a dump and diff below, so if you want to have a look. So there's 30% expo, which is good, and there's reasonable setting actually for kind of smoother flying. Receiver by default is set for an Express LRS SPI bus receiver, so that's fab. Again, you can put your binding phrase in here. I'm not using one with the setup that I've got. By default, the modes come pretty basic. There is only an arming on auxiliary 1, an angle on auxiliary 1, and GPS rescue on auxiliary 3. I would definitely come in and change this. This is a really odd way of doing it. I would have things like angle, horizon, or maybe horizon, acro, and GPS rescue as my modes on auxiliary 2, and maybe beep or auxiliary 3 with something else. So I'm definitely going to come in here and change that. On-screen display, this is an analog setup, so this is going to be set for an analog stuff. I'm going to change things to Imperial because that's the way I like it. Probably going to clean up this OSD before we fly. Video transmitter. By default, it has the table loaded and it's going for Fat Shark channel 8. I would say that that is probably more like what is going to work for me. So again, dump and diff are down below. You can have a look at the settings that I've got here. In addition to the Betaflight setup, the binding for Express LRS can be done using the bind receiver button, which is in the Betaflight config. You go into the receiver tab, it's actually at the bottom. Just click on that and it will put it into bind mode. Be aware though that the packet rate for the Express LRS system needs to be 250 Hz on the radio, as that's what the SPI receiver needs. Now you can change the packet rate on the quad using the set Express LRS _rate index setting in the CLI. I do wish that Betaflight would make this a little bit less cryptic. Yeah, for 500 Hz you set it for 0, 250 Hz set it for 1, 150 Hz you set it for 2, and 50 Hz you set it for 3. By default, it's 250, and there's detail in the documentation about doing that before you bind. In terms of flying, it performs really nicely. I'm getting about 5 minutes out of 1300 4S pack here. Again, I'm using the 6S version, hovering at about 22% throttle. I'm flying it without an action camera, so the all-up weight is 456 grams with the battery. So it's got lots of oomph to fly around and get in and out of trouble. 40 mile an hour cruising is easy to do on this, and it's only pulling about 12 amps while it does it. The thing about this is it's louder than expected. Let me just shut up for a minute and you can hear some of the audio that was recorded from the hat cam. So you can see that it makes quite a whine, which is not unusual for these kind of models, but definitely needs to be something you be aware of if you're going to be flying this in areas where it's going to annoy people. Flying is smooth and stable, but there is the odd pulsing sound when you're pushing it from the motors on mine. Maybe it's a Betaflight or ESC setup that needs a small tweak. The camera performance, as you can see, is expected. It's a very nice day that I'm flying in here with the footage. It's a very bright, clear, sunny winter's morning. The performance of everything is very nice, and it's very easy and fun to fly and very easy to fly smoothly. And it's nice to have those additional GPS pieces in the display, which means I can see my distance, direction to home, but also my speed and altitude too. There's a lot to like with this DarwinFPV Cineape35. You tend to get a lot for your money with DarwinFPV, and this is absolutely the same. I like the foam protection and the spare screws that come in the kit. There's lots of pieces in here. They're definitely trying to give you value for money. I'm only getting about 4 minutes. If you are flying it with something like a 4S 1300 pack and you have something like a GoPro on the top, the payload available in this is about 900 grams, so it would easily carry a full fat GoPro if that's what your heart desired. Number of things to be aware of though: it is using a 411 base flight controller, only has 2 UARTs, and it doesn't have a compass configured or installed, so if you wanted to swap this out to something like iNav to give you the ability to park it in 3D space, fly missions and stuff, that isn't going to be something that you can do with this. Slightly odd motor and prop noise on mine. You might have heard it in the video. Still seems to fly well and the motors are coming down relatively cool, so I'm not too worried about it, but it doesn't sound as clean as some of the other models that I've flown. No HD ready version if you don't want DJI. Come on, let's have a version that doesn't have any HD system in it, but supplied as HD ready for those of us that want to put something else in it. No obvious power cord also to power things like a GoPro or something like a Runcam Thumb Pro as well. That would be nice to have that kind of 5-volt supply for things like the Runcam Thumb Pro included in the model. I would have also liked the option to mount the battery side to side or kind of saddle style to allow for a little bit more camera room as well. Having it front to back does limit the amount of batteries that you can put on top of this. And watch for that Express LRS setup stuff in the manual with that 250 Hz default. And also there aren't a lot of the cool things like some of the competition to this has, things like the LEDs and stuff that SpeedyBee do so well. In summary, this is another very nice model from DarwinFPV. They seem to be working hard to bring out good value for money quads, but this isn't that far off the price of some of the competitive models that potentially perform a little bit nicer out of the box. And also things like spares availability and backup do make a lot of difference for these kind of models that tend to get flown quite hard. Thank you for watching the video. If you watch my videos and find them useful, then please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot. If you really like what I'm doing here, you can become a Patreon and support the time I spend helping others and get access to lots of exclusive benefits. Link is in the video description. Remember that all the videos on the channel are organized into playlists, so you can easily use those playlists to find all the videos on a subject that you are interested in. Add Painless360 to your searches on Google and YouTube, and it'll help you find my content for any particular topic. Thanks again for watching, and as always, happy flying.